part of the world. Salam alaikum and good morning to all of you. Okay, it's an absolute pleasure to be addressing my fellow professionals from the ICI institutes, and I think I need to kind of, my appreciation to the ICASI India as well as the ICI Middle East chapter, for giving us this opportunity to kind of talk of a very topical subject, right? And I think this conference could not have been more apt, right? This is the third day of the corporate tax introduction in the UAE, right? And just, about one day back, the most awaited kind of clarification has come about, right, on the free zones. Okay, we'll try and dwell a little bit on it in this session as such, right? But one thing is there, I have the most, the privileged chair, because I'm just going to be the chair, and my job is little easy, just asking the questions, and the panelists are going to, throw light in terms of the knowledge and the expertise that I have. And in that sense, I'm very fortunate to have such an esteemed panelist out here. Each of them a very distinguished personality in UAE and well-known names in the taxation and compliance sphere within the UAE. Right, coming to the topic per se, I think we have got three sub-topics. One is the introduction of best practices, right? The impact of the corporate tax on businesses in UAE. And the third one is the potential tailwinds for sustainable development per se. Okay, so maybe like with these kind of forums, I'll just possibly set the stage in terms of the topics that we have on hand. So when we talk about in terms of introducing best practices, I think the panel before and much more experienced, possibly 4 decades in the region. We are all might be 2-3 decades in the region. Right, they dwelled upon the past as such. Yeah, so I think Dubai and UAE has always been in the forefront in terms of businesses as such, right? And that is the background from where we are coming. But however, when you look at it from the international arena, especially when you don't have taxation in the region, so then it is always looked at with a different spectrum, right? And that is something which has been basically been looked at. And of course, the recent developments, when we talk of in the context of the OECD, where effectively close to 140 countries have signed in terms of introduction of a minimum rate of tax, right? So these developments have been there. So, and also the element of possibly UAE kind of, like the earlier panel I mentioned in terms of the diversification from being an oil economy. So these were all the backgrounds on which it has been done. So how has UAE actually, done this transition, right? And I think we also saw during the VAT days, right? What they had done was, whenever they have introduced, they always tried to keep it simple, okay, and not make it very complicated. So of course, our Indian professionals say that everything is easy here, right? Okay, we like to focus on the business, right? And not on compliance so much as such, right? So that is where the element comes in. Of course, always it has been easier at the start. Now what we are seeing in the VAT context also is that organizations have practically thought that VAT was a case of filing 10 numbers in the VAT return, right? And I think we all can vouch now is that a lot of tax audits are being conducted, and people realize that it is not just a simple case of filing 10 numbers in the VAT return. However, it is having the whole kind of process and compliance built in place from the start so that it doesn't become a project. Today, when the FTA comes for the audit, it is asking you for information from 2018. And people, who are there in the chair or in the organizations at that point of time, they said, who was there in 2018, right? So these are challenges that, you are facing in terms of that. So when you look at the tax rate for corporate tax, okay, I think people have highlighted that it is one of the lowest rate in the world, possibly today. And just for the sake of statistics, it is like among the below top 3, tax rates in the world. Okay, so I think we can complain, but we can't complain too much, right? Because it is among the lowest tax rates. So obviously, from a business perspective, when organizations look at establishing in the UAE, right, we still are having a very competitive tax rate which is available, okay? And the way they have done it is, when we look at small businesses, there are definitely reliefs, okay? Individuals are not taxed unless they basically conduct a business or business activity per se, right? So that's something that is being done. As far as the impacts on the business are concerned, one thing is very clear, all businesses have to basically, register possibly for the taxation unless they fall into the few exceptions per se. So that is something which is expected, supposed to be done, right? My fellow panelists will expand more on all the topics that I've spoken about, right? And when you talk about the sustainable development, I think earlier also people have mentioned is that whenever you have, any government kind of gets a tax-related revenue, right? It is always used for the development as far as the country is concerned, right? So effectively, when we talk about a sustainable development, okay, so basically the revenue that is being generated are going to be, spent in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of the development, right? Also the element of UAE has now started this new initiatives about, looking at from the perspective of startups, right? So all these are going to be facilitated. And I think Mr. Suresh Kumar mentioned that, we have to remember that when you talk about taxation, it's a federal structure. It is not an emirate-wise structure. So obviously, one of the biggest elements which will come in is that, this taxation is going to help the budgets and the revenues as far as the federal structure is concerned. I think this is broadly the overview. Hopefully, I have not covered your topics as such. Yeah. So primarily, I think we'll start with Abhi, right? Where maybe Abhi, you can give us little more insights into introducing the best international tax practices per se as such.
Thank you, Mr. Grace, and good morning, everyone. It's been a true honor for me to be here with all the ICSI Dubai chapter colleagues, and I'm pretty sure all my panelist fellow colleagues have been busy every day playing catch up with all the new regulations that's been coming up on a day-to-day basis. So, as a background, right, from a context perspective, first I would like to start by saying that UAE is part of the OECD's BEPS Inclusive Framework member country. OECD stands for Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, based in Paris. And as part of the 140 member Inclusive Framework member countries, when OECD introduced this concept of global minimum tax, or so-called Pillar 2, last year, UAE has also endorsed it globally. So if you think about it, it's one thing for UAE to sign a treaty globally, but not do anything back at home. So with that thing in mind, is one of the reasons why the UAE has introduced the 9% tax effective from Jan 1st, 2024 for the calendar year companies. Obviously, June 1st is effective for those companies with their fiscal year starting from June 1st. So we are in the third day here. So if you think about it, right, so when the OECD has the 15 BEPS action points from international, where there are 4 minimum BEPS action points where all the countries have to follow. BEPS Action 5, preventing harmful economic substance, where UAE has been on top of that, introducing economic substance regulation. BEPS Action 6, preventing treaty abuse. UAE has a treaty with close to 200 countries where they are trying to have a treaty in place with all those countries to avoid double taxation. BEPS Action 13, the transfer pricing documentation, where UAE has also signed the country-by-country reporting, TP reporting, to be in place. And last but not the least, BEPS Action 14, which is the dispute resolution, where UAE is also in good shape with the OECD. So you see, from an international landscape perspective, UAE has been playing a very active major role in that aspect, right? But of course, in the past, UAE was also considered as, used to be considered as a tax haven jurisdictions, what have you, and it's also harmful for the, for the companies doing business and all this thing. And UAE bringing the corporate tax, although it's a very nominal rate of 9%, is a great start. It's a great sort of endorsement for the businesses and even for the investors, where they feel like they are investing in a country where there is actual tax in place. As a matter of fact, I understand it was in the news that a few weeks ago, some of the big players in the investment funds, such as the Blackstone, BlackRock, and all those hedge funds, they are also starting up the investment funds in ADGM, which is Abu Dhabi Global Market Square. You can see the interest from the global investors all over the world here, right? So now that's from an international perspective. Now I'm sure everyone is curious here from how does it play to the UAE, what are the very high level rules of the UAE corporate tax that will be relevant to all of us. Of course, I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty detail, but and I'm sure my colleagues will have more to add. So first of all, UAE corporate income tax is applicable from June 1st, which is 2 days ago. The corporate tax is 9%. Right now, it's only 9%, but keep in mind that for large multinationals, which have a global revenue of over 750 million euro, the Pillar 2 rate is 15%. At this point, UAE said, let's stick with the 9%, and they will probably issue some more guidance, or they will transpose this international law into a domestic law, hopefully in a year or two. So, but at this point, if you have a large multinational who wants to know, will my rate be 9% or 15%, it will stay 9%. There's a separate Pillar 2 topic which might warrant a separate discussion. So all the UAE legal entities are subject to tax. The tax rate is either 0% or 9%. If you have a taxable income of no more than 375,000 dirham, then the tax rate is 0. For any income above 375,000 dirham, the tax rate is 9%. And as you know, we have the likes of DIFC, DMCC, ADGM. These are different free zones, right? And I'm sure all these free zones are getting the tax holidays. But now the new twist in the law is that all the legal entities, even the free zone entities, are subject to corporate income tax. Now, yes, they are subject to filing the report, but in terms of right now, as long as they meet the qualified income definition, they don't have to pay any tax at this point, but they still have to file the return. Just 2 days ago, there was a guidance release on the free zone of what is the good income and the bad income. But in summarize to say in the free zone, basically, when the public consultation was out back in April of 2023, they had a guidance that a free zone, could have some sort of good income or a bad income. But anyway, so what the rule now says is that, in summary, let's say you have a free zone company with 100 million dirham of gross revenue, right? A qualified free zone company. And that free zone company have, let's say, a non-qualifying income of 4 million dirham. Non-qualifying income means income generated from the other mainland and what have you. But again, just to keep it simple. So, and the rule says is as long as a free zone company have a non-qualifying income no more than 5% of the gross revenue or no more than 5 million dirham, that means you're fine. So in our case, in our case, we have a free zone company that has a total revenue of 100 million dirham, but with a non-qualifying or a bad income of 4 million, that means you're fine because you fall below the threshold, right? So in this case, the entire 100 million of a qualifying revenue will be good income and you don't have to pay any tax. You still have to file the return. But let's say that free zone company has a 6 million dirham of a non-qualifying or a bad income, you fail the test because it's over 5 million dirham or 5% of the gross revenue, right? Before this law came out, before this guidance came out 2 days ago, we were used to, our interpretation of the law is that we could have a good income and a bad income where you don't pay tax on the good income, you only pay tax on the bad income of 9%. But with this guidance that came out, there has been a monumental shift in our understanding of the law. Of course, we're still reading it, trying to digest it more, but in crux of the summary, what it says is that in my example, if you have a 6 million dirham of a bad income for a free zone company, the entire 94 million of a good income could be taxed. So you see the magnitude of what we are going through. So this is going to be a monumental shift, Obviously, the devil is in the details, but I just wanted to explain to you the magnitude of what we're going, and certainly I'm sure we're waiting for more guidance as we speak every single day. The guidance on the provision, expenses still needs to be come out. But yeah, with that, the most important thing is, UAE is playing a very active role in the international landscape, bringing in investors. They have an economy of over 450 billion US dollar. So I think this is going to be a very attractive place to do business, and that's very good for the economy. Mr. Gary.
Thank you for Abhi for basically, one is explaining in the context in which the the UAE corporate tax was introduced, and also touching upon the key highlights of the UAE corporate tax. Maybe now we move on to Mr. Saad, and maybe you can give us a little bit of background in terms of what is the impact of corporate tax on the businesses here.
Yeah, from the impact perspective, before we go on to the impact, let's go back to what Suresh Kumar mentioned about why the corporate tax is introduced. He explained it from the internal perspective, but the external thing is OECD kind of applied pressure on the tax-free countries to bring in the tax so that there is a level playing field for all the companies, and that there's a less abuse of the tax or the zero tax or the low tax jurisdiction. And like Abhi mentioned, for the eventual goal for UAE being one of the signatory as well, the eventual goal is to get to the 15% tax bracket. So in very near future, it is expected that for the tax rate will go up from 9% to 15%. However, this will take a few years time. So in terms of the impact, of course, when we say that the immediate impact, which everyone will realize, is that they will have less profit for the owners by 9%. Of course, that's number one thing. The number two is that there'll be a lot of compliances to be complied with in terms of the compliance with the laws and regulations, the documentation, and all the other matters. These are a couple of negatives. However, there are a lot of positives as well from the introduction of the corporation tax. The number one positive is that when the government introduced the tax, of course they do not consume themselves. They spend on the economy, right? They spend on the infrastructure, they spend on the healthcare, they spend on the education. Not necessarily, we do not expect the free education or the free healthcare here, but obviously they will be spending on developing the infrastructure and all that, right? So when this kind of spending happens, the basic economics is that it plays a multiplier role, right? So a $1 spent by the government will have more than one times of the multiple being circulated in the economy during that year. So the GDP is expected to increase. The consumer spending will increase, and as a result, the size of the economy will increase. So for all the businesses will have an opportunity to achieve a significant growth as a result of the introduction of the tax. However, like in the previous session, I think Suresh Kumar mentioned that the business model may need to change in the light of the new decisions which has recently come out. Be very nicely explained very briefly in terms of what these regulations are and what impact it will have on the free zone and the non-free zone activities. So the impact is going to be huge, but there are a lot of benefits as well coming out of this tax.
Thank you, Sad. I think generally people, whenever we talk impacts, we tend to talk about whatever the bad things as such. The good part of it is that he's also highlighted what are the benefits of having a taxation as such. So thank you so much for that. Jay, I think when we talk about sustainable development, and I think the topic is potential tailwinds for sustainable development. So maybe you can throw your, or at least throw your your light on this very important topic of sustainable development.
Perfect, sir. Before going into sustainability, yes, that's the theme of Dubai and UAE this year, that year of sustainability. I'll get into it. But मेरे को energy hall में कम लग रही. Can I have a round of applause? I've not seen you applauding well for any of our chief guests and others. पहले applaud करिए, because जब तक आप में energy नहीं आएगी, sessions में energy नहीं आएगी. Energy is not because of the podium. Energy is because of you. If you don't show the energy here, you will not enjoy the session. It's a long whole day session. तो थोड़ी एनर्जी आपको दिखानी पड़ेगी, तालियों से, स्माइल से, और तब हमको एनर्जी आएगी, हम आपको बता पाएंगे. मूविंग ऑन टू सस्टेनेबिलिटी, और बताता हूँ मैं सब सस्टेनेबिलिटी के बारे में, बट आई लव दैट गाय. इतनी सीट्स आगे खाली है. आई लव दैट स्कूल पार्ट की लास्ट बेंच पकड़ना है, लास्ट चेयर पकड़नी है, चाहे पूरी सीट्स खाली हो. थैंक यू सर. आई ऑल्सो यूज टू डू इन द स्कूल. नाउ कमिंग बैक टू सस्टेनेबिलिटी, आई लव द टॉपिक. टॉपिक में आप देखेंगे मैंने 2 वर्ड्स उठाए या 3 वर्ड्स देखे. वन इज स्टार्टिंग विद टैक्सेस, सेकेंड इज टेलगेटिंग, थर्ड इज सस्टेनेबल. हु लव टैक्सेस मैन? किस किस को टैक्सेस पसंद है? एज अ प्रोफेशनल यू लव टैक्सेस बिकॉज आपको इनकम हो रही है. नो वन लव्स टैक्सेस. बट माई डियर फ्रेंड्स, प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड, टैक्सेस एंड सस्टेनेबिलिटी गोज हैंड इन हैंड. We may not love taxes, but that is important. Sustainability comes with a pinch. अगर आपको sustainable environment, what is sustainability? Sustainability is something which has to be done in such a way that what we are doing is also enjoyed in the same manner by the future. हम आज enjoy करके निकल जाएं और हमारा future इस चीज को enjoy नहीं कर पाए, that is not sustainability. Sustainability is, if I am enjoying something, we should leave that material, we should leave those environment resources for them to enjoy. Question is, with taxes can we achieve it? Yes, it can be achieved. And when I think about whether UAE is able to do that sustainability part, I love UAE. Why? Because they never thought that taxes, yes, it will pinch, but they came up with innovative ideas of giving you reliefs. Reliefs like 1 million relief for a startup, not to pay taxes at all, not to register for corporate tax, is a sustainable way of saying, boss, you come to UAE, we are with you, we understand when you are starting your business, it cannot be profit making. It's a world where a new company comes up, you have to burn cash. How many of you have seen Shark Tank? Shark Tank India. सबने देखा है. मैंने वहाँ पे सीखा. वहाँ क्या सीखा? Burnouts. The new companies which comes into the stage comes for a burnouts. They burn cashes, they book losses initially. Why they book losses? Because they have to expand, they have to show that they have the potential. They focus on what? They focus on number of users. They focus on number of accounts which they have created, and they don't look at profits. UAE understands. That's why UAE came with the concept of what? They said, if you are earning up to 1 million, I'm not looking at taxing you at all. Because आप ऐसे ही cash burn out कर रहे हो. Why I will go for taxes for you? I will not give you tax burden as well. That was one thing. They come up with second thought. They said, I will give you 3 million relief as well. What is this? These are sustainable way of saying you, boss, yes, we are moving to taxes, but at the same time, I am also giving you a window to stand there and do business in UAE. I'm not taxing everything. सुबह से सुन रहे हैं 9% is the lowest rate of tax. That is another way of saying, boss, come to UAE. We can sustain it. Yes, we will go to 15%, but we will take a logical step. Today, we could have taken a step of giving you 15% corporate tax straight away, because minimum global tax will be 15%. Everyone knows about it. Pillar 2 is going to be a reality in some years. Everyone knows about it. But today, we have done 9%. Why? Because UAE believes in sustainability. My dear friends, please understand, UAE has adopted year of sustainability. Corporate tax, when they were discussing, I presume, I'm not sitting in their board, I'm not sitting with the ministers, but I presume whenever they decided corporate tax, they only not thought from their perspective that they will get revenue. They need revenue to run the society. They need revenue to ensure UAE grows in the way UAE is growing. How many of you loved UAE? How many are coming from India? कौन India से आए? How many of you do not love UAE? How many of you, please raise your hand, do not love UAE? एक hand ऊपर नहीं जा रहा है. How many of you think you will be able to settle in UAE? You want to settle in UAE? You want to shift to UAE? हाथ खड़ा करिए. खड़ा करे एक बार देखो तो सही यूएई में आना कौन कौन चाहता है. See what that is what UAE is bringing to you. UAE is giving you an environment which is sustainable, where you want to live, you want your child to live, you want your grandchild to live. This is nothing but sustainability. So sustainability and corporate tax goes in hand. Sir, एक क्वेश्चन मेरे दिमाग में है when I was preparing for the topic, and Girish is very you can say he ensures कि जय prepare कर रहा है. तो he used to have my evening sessions with me whether I'm looking into topic or not. He used to ensure. तो उन्होंने एक क्वेश्चन मेरे से पूछा था, and then I went into that. He said, Jay, then why UAE was able to survive for so long without corporate tax? If you are so pro about corporate tax to make UAE a sustainable environment for the market, how did they survive for last 50 years? Sir, because of oil. But our panelists have already said oil is something which is not long term. You have to look ways. You want your children and grandchildren and great grandchildren to come here and sustain and live a quality life. Cannot be done only based on taxes. That is why only based on oil. That is why taxes came in. And taxes is a sustainable way of doing it. There are certain pillars to it. We'll discuss about it. I think मेरे पास और भी कुछ आप थ्रो करने वाले हैं. तो इसके लिए मैं यहाँ स्टॉप करूंगा. लेकिन sustainable as taxes and sustainable goes hand in hand. And don't love taxes, but please pay taxes properly. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. So this is the benefit of having an experienced, campaigner as far as conferences and panel discussions are concerned. So not only that, he brought knowledge, and also he brought the energy into the room. Yeah. So I think we'll move to the next part, basically in terms of just to dwell a little bit further. So Abhi, when you look at in light of the global tax landscape and with the changes that is happening around the world, where do you think UAE is heading? Although we covered a little bit about those, but might be little you can elaborate more.
No, I think I love the energy, by the way. So I wish I could do the same. In terms of where UAE is heading, as my colleagues mentioned, when UAE introduced this law, they clearly mentioned that their objective is not to create a burden to the society or the taxpayer, right? Their whole objective is to make UAE the most tax-friendly place to do business. They want to encourage investment, and they want to do in such a way that all the introduction of the tax laws are in line with the international best practices, with the OECD standards, right? If you look at the law, of course, if you think about it, right, the law is not that complex compared to the Indian tax law, the US tax law is very straightforward, very simple, of course. So if you think about it, the UAE is certainly trying to move away from its dependence on the oil economy, right? And further subject to the COP and the carbon emission initiative that's going in the Western countries and all those things, UAE is also trying to not only sit in a passenger seat, but also in the driver's seat to introduce the tax so that it cannot be considered as a tax haven countries. And I think, in personal experience, I've been dealing with a lot of clients where when they're trying to do M&A transaction and all this thing, they always used to prefer the UK, the Luxembourg, as the Netherlands, as the holding company for the tax planning. But now, especially UAE has so much wealth, all the big investment houses, big corporations here in UAE, as they are investing in the UK or the US and the Germany, they are not longer looking at the Luxembourg or the Netherlands necessarily because of the issue of the substance, right? That's a global thing that's happening everywhere, the India, US, everywhere. So why even go to Luxembourg or the UK to create a holding company to have an investment in US and have a burden and all the problem? Whereas if you already have an employee, if you already have a business here in UAE, there you go. UAE has a substance already. And we have a great financial centers such as DIFC, the ADGM. And as a matter of fact, if you think DIFC laws are very well written in accordance with the common law, ADGM even takes it one step further. If you look at the contract law, they are word to word based on the English law, right? That shows that as investors want to do business, from arbitration, from a dispute resolutions, their investments are protected. So I think, and as we are helping our clients from our tax planning, from all the strategy, UAE holding companies regime is going to come up. And that's even so. So this shows you that UAE is certainly playing a head-to-head role with the other great jurisdictions like the Luxembourg. And now with the introduction of the Pillar 2, everything will be gone anyway. So this is a great opportunity for the global businesses to review their structure and see how we can have a structure in the UAE for all the obvious reasons. So I think the future looks great for the UAE economy.
Thank you so much, Abhi. Sad, now when we talk about the impact of the business, how do you think organizations should prepare for corporate tax?
Preparing for corporate tax requires, first of all, the impact on their own business, right? While the law is written in a generic way, we must ensure what is applicable to for our activities and how that will kind of translate into for them complying with the laws and the regulations. So that is the first step in the process. And for that, a lot of reading needs to be done of the laws and regulation, and then that needs to be updated. Like Abhi mentioned earlier that, just 2 days back, the new cabinet decision has come out. And, every day there will be some kind of update. So we need to be up to date with the laws and regulations. And certain times the laws and regulations are drafted, they may be complex or circular in a way to understand and interpret, right? So the understanding and interpretation of the laws and regulations is very important. So the same law can be interpreted in a 2 or 3 different manners, and it can have completely different outcomes. Right? So as a customer, we may interpret that law in a manner. As a consultant, they may be interpreting in a B, and the tax authorities may be interpreting in a C manner. So for the overall compliance have to be taken care when we are preparing for this. The second thing is that we also need to streamline our accounting system in a way that the softwares are able to capture the necessary information as per the requirements of the law, and the accounting team is being trained so that they are able to enter the data in a specific manner, which the tax authorities will be able to extract that information, right? Currently, we have the qualifying income and the qualifying activities and non-qualifying and excluded activities and so on, right? So we need to classify such income into these brackets so that it is transparent, and the tax authorities, when they need certain information, they can extract that information as readily available. Normally, and also one should prepare for the tax assessment, right? When we say prepare for the tax assessment means, expect that in few years' time they will come to make an assessment. Why they will come to make an assessment is because the disclosures you have made to them, the tax returns that you have filed to them, there may be certain discrepancies or difference in the interpretation of the specific rules, and because of that they do not agree with the tax that you have paid to the tax authorities, right? And for that reason they would want to come to make an assessment so that they can clarify that yes, the tax return was completed in a proper manner, or if it is not, then they will ask for the correction on that. And when they come for the assessment, they would want to ensure for all the documentation is being made available to them. Also, proper training of the accounting team is, of course, absolutely necessary. But at the same time, the training and the awareness for the owners and on the management team is equally important. Because here, from what we all know, is most of the companies, they have multiple entities here, right? In the mainland, in the free zone, the overseas, and so on. So there are complexities involved. There are intercompany transactions that happens between them. And the definition as per the whatever clarifications we have so far is that the transactions between them, the intergroup transactions or the related party transactions have to be at arm's length. The further definition is, or the clarification on the nature of the arm's length is yet to come. That is what the expectation that we have. However, you know, we should when it comes to the arm's length, and we are all familiar with the definition as per the IAS 24. That is the IFRS definition. And if we stick to that definition, more or less the tax definition would be more or less the same. So if we have to, you know, make sure that the owners do not enter into the transaction, or the operational team do not enter into the transactions with the related party which is not at arm's length, and the accounting team enters into the transaction thinking that that is at arm's length because they are not aware about what is the arm's length thing, then there could be a lot of challenges posed by the tax authorities. So this is one thing. The other thing is, in terms of retention of the documentation, is very important. Of course, you know, there are differing rules. Certain authorities within the UAE, they require minimum of 5 years. To certain regulations, they require 7 years. So we should keep the documentation higher of the requirement, which is about 7 years, so that we be on the safe side. Now, having said that, 7 years, sometimes, you know, because of the tax assessment, the nature of the tax assessment that the tax authorities may conduct, let's say towards the end of 5 or 6 years, they send you a notification saying that we want to come for an assessment. And that assessment may take a long time because of the complex nature of the transactions and the activities and the size of the activities. Then in that case, it is advisable not to destroy the previous records, even if it is more than 7 years, right? So for this is just basically the training and the awareness, and the policy documentation needs to be there. And the awareness, not only within just the accounts team, but the entire organization is important.
Thank you, Mr. Saad. I think you explained it well in terms of how the companies should be prepared as such. In fact, on the note of, you know, the notice, you know, the period for which you have to maintain the records, I think we have a recent experience of the VAT. Like the VAT statute of limitation basically got over, you know, somewhere around 2023 start. Okay, and we have seen a spate of notices being issued by the tax authority. And before that, they just changed it. So effectively, what it is requiring you is now to keep the records for another 4 years. So I think we can take that 5 and 7 are some minimum years. And, you know, you better develop your archiving system so that, you know, you're actually able to keep for, you know, longer periods than that as such. Okay, Jay, I think we want your unique thoughts about how, you know, when you talk about sustainability having certain pillars, right? And how does that relate to taxation per se?
Sir, as I said, before I go into that, I love that part that they have issued the notices. So you have to understand tax authority has to be sustainable. So they are ensuring they are getting sustainable for next 4 more years before you are saying, I will not give you the documents.
So one more element of sustainability you add.
That is already there with the tax authority. Now, as I said, taxes and sustainable goes hand in hand. We cannot say that taxes is a pinch. Because as I said, sustainability is not something which you are doing for yourself. Maybe 20% you are doing for yourself, 80% you are doing for the future generations. Sustainability is not for today because you have ample resources to consume today. It's looking at the future, and we see the future bleak when the resources are depleting and they are not getting renewed. That is where the future lies, and that is why sustainability as a theme is not only for UAE, it's for the globe to think about it. You, me, our children also needs to think about sustainability, because maybe after 50 years, most of us will not be around, except those who are still in 20s. हम नहीं रहेंगे, but वो कहीं ना कहीं issue आने वाला है, and that is the reason, from taxes perspective, we can ensure sustainability. How? Now tell me, you believe resources are in a fixed quantity? Resources are always in a fixed quantity every time. So how to ensure that resources are only used for the purpose for which it has been created? Can we only weigh 2 ways? Either tax it or create that fear. Either you create the fear in the market or in the human that they cannot use it. It is dangerous for them, for their life, or they have the life threat. That is called fear. Second is tax it to the extent that they will only use it optimally. Right? You tax it to the extent that they need it, then only they will use it, otherwise they will not use it. Now we are a country where we cannot have fear as a way to dictate terms. That is why where we have to go for taxes. So taxes helps us to ensure that the resources which are in limited quantity can be consumed when required because we are taxing it. Now if you see, a vague example, we are moving from corporate tax for a second. UAE brought in sin tax. What is sin tax? They have taxed excise on cigarette products, on sweet beverages. Why they are taxing it? They are trying to discourage it. Problem is we have ample money, we are still spending on it. But if they want, they can make the taxes so high that next time if you go to the center, you will pick up a milk packet instead of a sweetened drink. It can be done that. How we can do it? Through taxes. So tax is a way to ensure which materials can be protected so that our future generations can enjoy it. That is one way, right? What is second way of doing it? Economics. What is economics? Economics is to ensure that the material which is getting consumed is getting the fair price for it. How to ensure fair price? Everyone has heard about arm's length. आपके इंडिया में तो बहुत चल रहा है सर arm's length. हमने तो अभी सुना है. हमारे लिए तो अभी चालू होगा arm's length. But you have heard about arm's length, right? Yes, no, good, bad. तो मैंने आपको पहले बोला आपको मेरे से बात करना पड़ेगा नहीं तो मैं बात ही नहीं कर पाऊंगा. तो आपने arm's length सुना है? That arm's length is nothing but to ensure that a fair price is given for the resources getting utilized across the world. World is a single place, my dear friends. Countries are just the boundaries created by you and me, humans. If you look at the world as a single place, it can have a single tax. Only we want to achieve it, but how to achieve it is to ensure something like transfer pricing, arm's length. So by arm's length, what we are ensuring? That we are paying a fair price for whatever the material we are using it. So that that price can be used to create an alternate material or alternate source. Why we are seeing solar energy? Why we are seeing wind energy? Because that money we got from you as taxes was used to identify this, invest it and grow them. That is the second way of doing it. What is the third way of doing it? Sir, how many of you have seen COVID? किसने COVID नहीं देखा? सबने देखा है? What does COVID taught us? COVID हमको क्या सिखाता है? मेरे को बहुत बड़ा लेसन मिला सर. एक तो ये पता चला कि हाँ घर का काम बहुत होता है, हमको भी करना पड़ता है, and 50% we have to share with our life partners. How many of you escaped that no one shared with the life partner home duties during COVID? How many of you shared? किसने शेयर किया? बाप रे बाप, सबने शेयर किया मतलब मैं अकेला नहीं था बोट में. Okay, so if you have shared those duties, one thing which I learned from COVID is, look, we are doing so much research and other stuffs. We cannot deny the possibility of another pandemic. I'm not saying it will be there. We cannot deny it, and we have to ensure that we are only working the right direction. Because when you do a research or when you are doing inventions, it can go either ways, right? How you can ensure that the inventions are going the right direction? All the harmful resources which you believe are harmful should be taxed to the extent that no one is ready to pick them up unless it is required. So taxes helps you to ensure that the harmful products are in control, are not freely available. One way of doing it is custom duty. Custom duty is nothing a way to ensure resources are utilized in the place where they are, or only travel when actually required by some other countries. Why? Because custom duty will be high, you will not import it. You will only import the domestic ones. That is another way of taxes ensuring that only the right product goes into market. Because my dear friends, I am telling you, the way we are moving, yes, our knowledge is expanding, but we are also expanding on the other direction where crises will happen, like something which we have seen in COVID was a great lesson that we cannot avoid that in future as well. कहीं ना कहीं कुछ हो जाए, पता नहीं चलता. Next, I will give you one more example. How many of you are spiritual? कौन कौन भगवान को मानता है? भगवान को भी इतने लोग मानते हैं. चलिए, अगर आप भगवान को मानते हैं तो आप ये मान के चलिए, when we are talking about taxes, taxes can only happen properly when it is coming from inside. Why I am saying? Because if you have internal, as a government, as authority, I can have internal control, I can have statutory audits, but if management is not ready to do the right thing in the right manner to pay taxes, nothing can happen. And from where they will get the right message to the right thing? One way is to get them scared by penalizing. Second comes from here, sir. That is called spiritual. आप अगर spiritual हैं, you will do the right thing for the company and you will pay the right taxes, right? So that is one thing which I say, sustainability is coming from spirituality as well. If you are not spiritual, you cannot be sustainable and can be connected to taxes. So my dear friends, you have material, use it. Tax it properly. That is one way of doing sustainability for taxes. Second is economic. Right price for the resources so that we can create that volume of money for our futures to generate alternate resources, because resources are depleting. Trust me, it will continue to deplete. So sustainability के लिए जरूरी है we pay the optimum price. Next is generate your spirituality so that you go to your back to your organizations and pay the proper taxes, because हम कुछ भी कर लें as authority, ह्यूमन ब्रेन इज वेरी क्रिएटिव. हम आज कुछ लेके आएंगे, ह्यूमन ब्रेन उसका अल्टरनेट लेके ही आएगा. अनटिलनेस इट कम्स फ्रॉम हार्ट कि नहीं यार इतना तो हमको देना चाहिए, फेयर शेयर. करेक्ट. वो एक चीज़ सुरेश जी ने बोली थी, आई थिंक सुरेश जी ने बोली थी नहीं, कालामट्टी साहब ने बोली थी, इट शुड बी लाइक अ हनी बी कलेक्शन. Collect the honey without troubling anyone. That is the way taxes should work. Yes, government has to do it, but we also have to do our parts so that sustainability can be done for future. Sir, over to you. मैं बोलता चला जाऊंगा अपनी.
नहीं,
One thought I would like to add here. One thought I'd like to add here to what Jay mentioned is that, you know, we should not be seen to be involved in any kind of a wrongdoing. Right. So many times, you know, the owners or your superiors may say something to you, not intentionally, maybe due to their ignorance of the laws and regulations. They may say to do something, but it is your responsibility as a professional. It is our responsibility as a professional to guide them what is the correct way to do it. If we are seen to be involved in wrongdoing, then we may be in trouble as well as a profession, and that may you know, create a reputational damage not only for us but for our whole entire institution.
Sure. Thank you, Jay. I think you know, he has now convinced us in terms of that we should always pay our taxes on time as such. I think in the interest of time, what we'll do is that if there are any questions from the audience, we'll quickly take it. Otherwise, I will wrap up this session as such. Anyone has any question? Yes, please.
I can see one hand there. Sir, question छोटा पूछेगा क्योंकि वो स्टेज पे आ गई है.
Being a professional, we would love to hear from you the technical aspects, because, you know, as far as sustainability is concerned and, you know, good governance is concerned, this is what we have been taught since our membership and previous to that also, prior to that also. So say for examples, if you say that, okay, there's a corporate taxation and we are as a professional from India, we are willing to handle those clients, be it from India virtually or from UAE in the days to come. Then how we should handle that client? If at all there is any escapement of tax, is there any appellate body over there where we can register those grievances and then we can address it, whether it is a faceless or physical, something like that. That we'll have to hear from you.
Yeah. You want to take it?
No problem, sir. मैं लेता हूँ, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. Sir, I love that you want to understand technical part of it. So this was part of the agenda to discuss sustainability, और हमारा theme हमको करना पड़ता है. Now talking about your technical portion, how do you do it? In UAE, it's completely faceless, right? Now, India also is faceless, so far as I understand. UAE is completely faceless in terms of that. If you see the structure from corporate tax perspective, there's authority, we call it Federal Tax Authority. They are responsible for ensuring your corporate taxes. They are like income tax authority in India. I'm just relating it because it will be easier for you to understand how exactly we are structured. So from income tax authority, we call it Federal Tax Authority here. They take care of corporate taxes. You file the returns there. So I'm not going into the registration part of it. If your India client come here, registers as a company, there's a complete different process for it. Register, that's a different authority depending on which emirate you want to register, whether it's a department, Dubai Economic Department or Abu Dhabi. So I'm not getting into that registration process, नहीं तो madam यहाँ तक आ जाएंगी अभी. I'm going into the taxes part. So you file your taxes with the Federal Tax Authority. You file your return there. They vouch, they review your returns. If you talk about the formats, still that is under wrap. Till now the formats of corporate tax returns are still not out. So far as the structure of appeal goes, I will give you the VAT appeal structure, and I presume, because my colleagues will also presume the same thing, that it will be the same structure which will come for corporate tax, because it's still not published completely what will the hierarchy in terms of appeals. So if you are filing a corporate tax and the FTA comes to you and says, no, this is not the right tax, I want to take additional tax, and you do not agree, there will be a committee called Tax Dispute Resolution Committee, TDRC. But before going to TDRC, FTA also gives you one more reason to reconsider. We call it reconsideration. So you can file a reconsideration justifying why you should not pay additional taxes to them, what they are asking for, what is your ground for it. But that goes internally to FTA, Federal Tax Authority or Income Tax Authority. They will review it and either they will waive it off saying, yes, you are right, we were wrong, I'm sorry, don't pay anything. Or they will say, no, we stand by it and you have to pay additional taxes which we are asking for. I think we are going in the right direction what you are asking. आपकी आंखों से एक बार लग रहा है कि नहीं हम गलत जा रहे हैं. सही जा रहे हैं चलिए तो दैट इज वन पार्ट वन यू वंस यू हैव डन द रिकंसिडरेशन द नेक्स्ट अथॉरिटी विल बी टैक्स डिस्प्यूट रेजोल्यूशन कमेटी वो क्या है वो एक 3 मेंबर का बेंच है 3 मेंबर्स ऑफ द बेंच विल सेट एंड इंडिपेंडेंटली रिव्यू योर पिटीशन अगेंस्ट एफटीए दोनों की पार्टी को सुना जाएगा इट्स लाइक एपलेट ट्रिब्यूनल इन इंडिया दे विल हियर एंड दे विल गिव योर वर्डिक्ट if the verdict is in your favor you are happy if it is in verdict is in the favor of fta they will be happy either party who is not happy can approach to the first court okay we call it by different name but it's a first court you can call it a high court where not a high court the district court where you can apply for it and say no I'm not happy with the decision of appellate tribunal I want to reconsider what my facts are you go there you file it and then they will again give a decision either way decision can be in one of the parties favor the last authority is the authority of the court of secession which you can understand as Supreme Court and they will only pick up the file if it is a question of law अगर सिर्फ डिस्प्यूट है दोनों पार्टी के बीच में लॉ इज वेरी क्लियर दे मे रिजेक्ट योर एप्लीकेशन सो दैट इज द लास्ट अथॉरिटी सो यू आर गेटिंग व्हाट यू आर गेटिंग आफ्टर योर फाइलिंग ऑफ रिटर्न्स यू गेट फर्स्ट रिकंसिडरेशन विद द एफटीए इटसेल्फ within the authority second is your TDRC tax dispute resolution committee third goes to your first court which you can consider district court last is court of secession which is nothing but Supreme Court and only question of law can go there these are the 5 authorities where you can apply for it लेकिन as जैसा मैंने बोला है this is from VAT perspective
No. So just to add to that, what happens is that the federal tax procedures are something which are common across all the taxes.
यही चीज कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स के लिए भी
The
चलेगी.
same will be followed. Abhi, you wanted to have a quick word.
Absolutely, yes. Well, just as a closing statement, I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't say that as we all are professionals in a company where even though we may not be a CA because this is a ICSI, right? It's all about the good governance. So as I'm going to client meetings, you would be surprised that not only I'm meeting the CFO and the head of tax, but I'm also in those meetings, I'm also having the legal counsel as well as company secretaries also be there. And I think there is a very good reason for that. Because there's the most important article in the law is called Article 50, which is called General Anti-Avoidance Rule. It's a GAR regulation. So whatever the planning, whatever all the structuring you are doing, or the head of tax or the CFO is doing, it needs to be made sure that we are not doing this any planning to avoid the tax. It needs to have a governance, it needs to have a legal reason, it needs to have a business and commercial reason, right? This is where I believe that this is an impeccable time for all of us, for all of you as well, to raise your voice with the CFOs or the head of tax that any sort of discussion regarding the tax planning or structuring is going on, you as a company secretaries are also involved so that from a good governance practices, you know what's going on from day one so that because your ultimate goal is to have the organization in the most tax optimal way without breaking the rules and this is where your role plays the most crucial part. And thank you for having me.
Great. Thanks, Adi. I think this session has ended on a definitely encouragement for the company secretaries, right, from a perspective of compliance. Just in terms of a summary, right, I think, sorry that we could not get into the technical details because I think we were, kind of sticking to the script as such, what we had. I'm sure there are other, panelists who are going to dwell on the further matters in terms of on the corporate tax as such. Okay, so what I think from this session, effectively, what we have kind of understood is in terms of, the background in terms of the introduction of corporate tax in terms of UAE, okay. The other part of it is, what are the impacts that the organization has had and basically, how do you prepare for it? And of course, Jay always brings his unique way in terms of how sustainability and taxation can be related. I take this opportunity to thank Abhi, Saad and Jay for their contributions as such and hopefully it has been an enriching session for you. Thank you so much.